We're glad to have you back here with us as we continue on this Thursday morning. Our money expert, Chris Hopkins with Apogee Wealth Partners, is here to talk about a few things that we all need to pay attention to, especially as we get closer to the holidays. Chris, good to see you.
Chip, good morning. Thank you.
Food.
We're
all hearing about the rising cost to feed the family this coming Thanksgiving.
Right.
Why and how much?
Well, this is kind of the tail end of the inflationary spiral we've experienced, right? We all have a hangover from the COVID pandemic, and coming out of that, prices spiked. And just for reference, we came into this year with inflation at 8% an annual rate. So the grocery prices were one of the last things to kind of catch up with us. So expect to pay, 15 or 20% more for Thanksgiving dinner this year.
What if we get beyond Thanksgiving and into the new year? Do you foresee that coming down a little bit, or are they going to stay fairly consistent?
No, I think, prices never come down quite as much, but it wouldn't be surprising to see a little bit of relief next year as we get into the new year. We're going to see the economy probably slow a little bit. One of the biggest costs of producing food is fuel, diesel fuel, for example. So, we've seen some real progress in terms of oil prices and gas. So I would expect to see at least a stabilization next year and maybe a slight downtick in groceries.
All right. Talking about diesel fuel to get the stuff from the farm to the stores to our table, let's talk about gas prices. That seems to have gone down at least a little bit here recently.
Sure. Right. And that's one of the first things we notice, right? The big bright red letters everywhere we go looking for what's going to cost to fill up. So we've seen a remarkable decline in oil prices from, around $100 a barrel, or nearly. We were closing in on it. We're at about $75 a barrel now, in spite of the fact that OPEC has cut production, the war in Ukraine, and so on and so forth. The fact of the matter is that American oil and gas production has just exploded in the last decade, and inventories are up. We're also in the fall driving season, and that helps a little bit, cheaper formulations. But the bottom line is, even going into the holidays, expect to see a little bit lower gas prices than what we've experienced the first half of the year, and that's good for everybody.
Yeah, it certainly is, especially for those folks who live in Georgia, where Governor Kemp has reduced the gas tax until, the first of the year, I think.
Absolutely, and if you think about it, higher gas prices act like a tax, right? Effectively, they take money out of your pocket, so it's good news.
Any way you cut it, certainly is. All right, one of the hot buttons that you and I talked about during our last visit, student loan repayments, and this is a hot button hitting a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Break it down for us.
So we had about 40 million borrowers who had a 3.5-year hiatus, didn't have to make a payment for 3.5 years. The interest did not accrue. They weren't reported as being late, so they really got a kind of a do-over. And in the meantime, if you were on a repayment schedule, that 3.5 years counted against the long-term clock, the countdown. So now, beginning October, repayments start, and that's going to be $200 or $300 a month on average.
How do you think, and I know you can't paint everything with a broad brush, but how do you think these student loan repayments are actually going to be affected? Are the folks who owe the money to the government for their student loans, are they going to start repaying, or is it just going to kind of go in the back burner somewhere? Well,
let's just say if it does go in the back burner, it's going to catch up with you. Don't ignore it. So we did have about 800,000 or 900,000 borrowers who missed their first payment. But again, bear in mind, we've got 40 million, so it's a small percentage, but you can't ignore it. If it will catch up with you. So it's likely that it's going to reduce holiday spending a little bit. Credit card balances are at a record level. Credit card interest rates are high. Student loan payments restart. And so it's likely to have a slightly dampening effect on the holiday season. On the other hand, the National Retail Federation still thinks 3.5% or 4% more holiday spending this year than last. So if there's one thing to take out of this, it might be just keep an eye on that holiday budget. Don't run up more debt if you've got student loan payments now you have to make.
Sure. Always some good sound advice. Chris, thank you so much. Wish you could stick around, but we're up against a hard break. You want to find out more about Chris Hopkins and what he can do for you? Check him out. Apogee Wealth Partners. Apogee Wealth Partners.